Storybooks are there to teach your kids to be good. Jonathan Livingston Seagull or Little Riding Hood. But comic books are cooler. Zombie horror, traveling blue boxes, Spike and Buffy Angel if we absolutely must.
Ew.
The name's Samantha Maybe. I'm a Loki-loving Whedon lady. Don't you call me Sammy or I'll punch you in the face.
Really?
Comic Sans.
Hello, comic book fans! So a few weeks ago I was at the comic book store and I was wearing my goggles and the manager came up to me and was all,
"Hey, are you into like sci-fi and steampunk?
"Yep."
You'll probably like these then."
So I brought him home. The first one is called Mind the Gap. He pitched it to me as a sort of psychological thriller, so I was interested. The second one is called Saga. He told me that it was a more popular sci-fi series. I was intrigued, but I really didn't know what to think. But I've been having a hard time trying to pick which one to review next, so let's see what they're about. Mind the Gap is a psychological journey through the protagonist's unconscious mind. Having been the victim of some attack by an unknown person, she is in a coma at the opening of the book. She wakes up in her own head and has to try to find a way out to discover who her attacker was and to reunite with her loved ones. I've always been one for psychological journeys through one's mind space, but let's see what Saga's all about. In Saga, we meet a woman in labor and her husband, I guess. She has a baby, then they get attacked by a group of soldiers accompanied by some kind of advanced TV-headed cyborg, but somehow survive and are given a map, presumably on the impetus of escaping the planet with their child in tow. There's also planet-wide war, a handful of mercenaries, some creepy ghost children, and artwork that makes this feel like it's an adaptation of some Firefly storyline. If all of that isn't enough to entice you, I guess it's time for some... So it turns out that the narrator in this story is the baby from the first few pages, which is interesting. At the very least, it makes the child's presence purposeful, and you know that she will at least be okay, no matter what happens to her parents, who seem to be wanted felons. There is in fact a war going on Cleve, the planet the story begins on. But the war didn't start there. The child's mother, whose name is Alana, I kid you not, comes from a planet called Landfall, the largest planet in their galaxy. Landfall is orbited by a moon named Wreath, where the child's father is from. The people of Landfall have wings. Those of Wreath have various kinds of horns on their heads. When war broke out between Landfall and Wreath, both Alana and Marco joined the fight. At some point, Marco was captured and held prisoner on Cleve. Alana was stationed at his cell to guard him, but through some series of events, they ran off together. She got pregnant, and now they're being hunted by mercenaries and soldiers. So that's the backstory, and I'm only like 20 pages in. So Alana and Marco spend some time hiding out in the sewers, when Alana notices the map she is holding leads to the rocket ship forest. A forest that grows rocket ships. They decide to head there in an attempt to find safe passage off of Cleve. The pair heads out toward the Uncanny Bridge, and finds the area in the midst of a battle, and the bridge destroyed. They are forced to find another passage. They find themselves deep inside a forest, one that doesn't grow rocket ships, and Gale is concerned that they will be attacked in the night by the horrors, monsters from scary stories in his childhood. They fall asleep after sitting down on a rock. When they awake, they find themselves confronted by a woman who calls herself the Stalk. This is the title given to highly accomplished mercenaries in these worlds. The Stalk grabs Gale and tells Alana not to worry, that their child will be safe because the Royalists want her alive. So Alana threatens to kill her own child, rather than to let the Stalk take her. What do you know? A parent taking the most logical course of action in order to provide the best possible future for their child, even if it means killing them. I am liking this. The Stalk says that the horrors are coming, and leaves the couple alone. They're actually a group of childlike ghosts, gruesome and disfigured in life. Their leader, her name is Isabel, offers to help get Marco around some snow. Marco can perform magic spells, and he knows one that will heal him, but it requires snow. Isabel tells Alana that she'll take them to some snow if they agree to get her off Cleve by allowing her soul to travel inside their daughter, who they decide to name Hazel. Initially, Alana is hesitant, but eventually she allows her to merge her soul with Hazel's. The foursome find some snow and Marco heals himself. Then Isabel helps them find a path to the rocket ship forest and helps them to avoid some traps that the horrors have set up. Before they reach their destination, they are ambushed by a small group of soldiers in a spacecraft, and Marco has to break a vow of pacifism in order to save himself and his family. They take the ship and fly it to the rocket ship forest. Upon reaching the forest, they find nothing, and Isabel tells them that the ships are hidden. One of the ships rises up out of the ground. It's made of wood and looks rather like a giant set of twisted tree roots. A sacrifice of sorts is required to make the ship operate. Marco splits his sword in two as a final admonition that he will never strike down a man with his blade again. The ship takes off, and somehow, Marco's parents are transported onto the ship. So apart from the ending of the trade coming completely out of left field, I found the story of the couple's escape from Cleve compelling and detailed and beautiful. There was a great deal of character and relationship development, and it was really neat to see the story narrated by a character currently in the story in the future. However, their story wasn't the only interesting one. Like any good story, in my opinion, the motivations and actions of the antagonizing parties are explored in great detail throughout Saga. There are essentially two parties of interest, the Royalists and the Mercenaries. The Royalists aren't too terribly interesting, apart from the fact that their prince is a frackin' robot. I hope that we maybe learn more about who or what he is. He's an important soldier, and he's been tasked with tracking down and killing Marco and Alana. His wife, the princess, discovers that she is pregnant shortly after he leaves on this mission, and he vows to complete it and be back home in a few months. That's the gist. That leaves us with the Mercenaries. Now, Alana and Gale are both really interesting characters, but my favorite character is the Will. The Will is another mercenary, like the Stalk. The Will is accompanied by an awesome creature called a liar cat that can sense when people are lying. They were both hired by a creepy woman named Vez, specifically to track down Marco for fraternizing with the enemy, but they want the child alive. The Will is given an unlimited credit card and told that he isn't the only man on the job. When he discovers that the Stalk is also in on the mission, he gives up and heads to Sextillion, a brothel planet. There seems to be some kind of history between the Will and the Stalk. There's a point where the Stalk is asking him for help, but he's unwilling to assist her because of something that she did on another assignment. It appears that the two were romantically involved, and he's upset about her infidelity. I really don't want to think about how that works. Just, no. While on Sextillion, the Will seems uninterested in the sights, and a strange-looking alien directs him to a special girl, a slave girl. When the Will sees her and discovers that she is only 6 years old, he is disgusted with her manager and dispenses of him quickly. He then takes her away and intends on escaping with her so she'll never have to do this kind of work again. He is halted by a woman, presumably the woman who runs the planet, holding his cat at gunpoint. She tells him that he can pay off the girl's debt, essentially, and set her free. He returns to his ship to ask the Stalk for financial assistance, but she's in a tussle with the Royalists and is shot and killed while on the phone with him. The prince, who is responsible for the Stalk's death, picks up the phone and explains the situation to the Will. The Will does not take kindly to the news that the creature he loved has been gunned down, and he vows to find the prince and kill him. Despite this, it appears that the Will is going to pursue Marco and Alana, based on the narration by Hazel, and she assures us that he is in fact a monster. So essentially, we have the Royalists going after Alana, the Mercenaries going after Gale, and both parties are fighting each other. Yeah. Things don't look too good, but I really want to see Hazel grow up. She's gonna have horns and wings. How cool is that? I was shocked by the amount of detail already present for each character, even for characters like the Will, who we only see for maybe 20 pages. Even though I feel like I know a lot of them pretty well, there's still so much that we don't know. Why on earth did Alana spring Gale from his prison cell in the first place? I think there have to have been some seeds of rebellion festering in Alana's mind before she met Gale. Or maybe he's just a really smooth talker. If you're interested in this story, I would encourage you to go and pick it up. It was fun and detailed and surprising and even a little shocking sometimes. Some of the panels were just too crazy for me to feel comfortable including in this review. I'm already completely in love with the story that's forming and the universe that we're in. It has the potential to go somewhere really, really interesting. At this point, anything could happen. This is one that I want to read over and over again, just to pick up on little things that I may have missed out on. None of the characters annoyed me, and I'm genuinely interested in all of their stories. I can't say enough about how excited I am to see this comic moving forward, but I think I've rambled on for long enough. Until next time, I'm Samantha Maybe, and I need to go back to the comic book store.